Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Inside the Therapy Room. I'm your host, Sam Sellers. I'm a registered therapist, a wife, and a fur mama, and I am passionate about breaking down the barrier and stigma attached to therapy. I want to begin by first honouring the traditional custodians of the land we live and work on. Today, Emma is in Yugambeh country and Sam is on Gundungurra land. We pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, and cultures of our First Nations people. We must always remember that the land below our feet is, was, and always will be Aboriginal land. Today we are chatting to Emma Nelson, who is mum, wife, and friend first, therapist and helper second. She is the owner of her therapy practice, Zen Zebra Art Therapy, and a little fun fact about Emma is that she is a lover of all things cake and cheese, however not cheesecake. Today's episode is all about the world of art therapy. We hope you enjoy joining us inside the therapy room. Welcome, Emma. How you going?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Amazing. Yeah. Give us a little bit of that accent. Where is that accent from?
Well, it is from North Yorkshire,
right?
But I sound more English than I do Yorkshire because my mum was very strict against us talking like Ebagum. You know, we're from Yorkshire. So she was like, no, darling, it's the Queen's English. So even though I lived in North Yorkshire most of my life, I sound more generically English.
Okay, right. And you are currently in sunny Queensland?
Yes.
Nice.
Very much so happy and have been for 11 years this month.
Amazing. We are in polar opposite climates at the moment because I'm obviously down near Canberra and it is, goodness, it still probably feels a little bit like winter down here. But it's part and parcel of the course.
Oh, you look beautiful and summery today.
Yes, thankfully indoors there's heating and I get to wear things. Actually, for those that are watching, I decided to wear a fun dinosaur print for today's episode because you are an art therapist, a creative therapist. And so I thought, let's jazz it up a little bit.
I know, you've really shown me up because I do wear some wacky stuff to work. And here I am in my plain, boring white t-shirt and you're rocking the dinosaurs. I have shirts with drag queens on them.
Oh, love it.
Birds, cats, and my kids are like, what on earth are you wearing, mother? And then look at me. You're the one. You look like an art therapist today. You look like a boring mother.
I've even got like multicolored heart earrings as well.
I'm obsessed with rainbows. If you walked in my room, it would look like someone threw up a rainbow in there. So you would fit really in that.
Thank you. I mean, I would imagine that an art therapy space would be nice and bright and colourful and, you know, you want the space to serve as inspiration as well, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. I want it to be welcoming,
and
inviting and non-threatening, and it's all of those.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you work in person as well as online, or do you mainly do in person?
I would say I am 96% in person.
Yep.
Did a little bit of training when we were studying online. I must admit, I struggle. I'm so used to having that person and that energy in the room. It's a different beast online. So I do it when I'm asked, but I certainly don't go looking for the online work. I prefer that real face-to-face, nervous system to nervous system thing.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, doing a creative arts sort of modality, you want that tactile, being able to touch, feel, sensory sort of aspect of art therapy and creative modalities as well, I would think.
Yeah, and the one client I'm thinking of that I have currently online, I can see like the top of her head as she's scribbling away and creating away, and I'm used to seeing the whole body. I'm used to seeing the artwork, and it's really weird watching this little forehead busy away. But you know, we do what we do, and we make the best of it.
Yes, it's being creative in a different sense.
It is, and it keeps me on my toes.
Yes, I bet it does. So tell us, why art therapy? What drew you to that modality?
Oh, you're gonna die when you hear this answer. But Art therapy found me, weirdly enough.
Right.
I was a full-time mum for coming up 17 years when I decided to go back to work,
Hmm.
to be something a little more than just a mum to my kids. I wanted to inspire them and make them proud. And I signed up for nursing to be a midwife eventually, and that's what I thought I would do. And then a dear friend bought me a palm reading session for my
Hmm.
40th birthday, which I love. I'm open to all of that. And this very forthright spiritual lady crunched all my numbers and worked out that I was a creative soul, which I know I am. Art is definitely a gift, a mild gift, I would say, and color and design and stuff like that. So she crunched my numbers, but then and then she also realized that I loved working with people. And I said, yeah, I'm about to go and do nursing and midwifery. And she's like, no, you'll hate it. You'll hate it. Beg your
Oh.
pardon. And she was like, you'll burn out. You'll burn out. You'll hate the shift work, blah, blah, blah. She said, for a successful career, you need to be combining all your gifts and
Mm.
you need to be combining your helping willingness with your creative gifts. And I was just like, what is she talking about? And she mentioned art therapy, and I had no idea what it was.
Mm.
She literally told me the uni to go and seek it out in, which I did. And I think I pulled out of university that day and enrolled to Icon Institute, where I did art therapy the following year. It took me a year to get sorted to get into the course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it found me.
I
So
mean, wow. That's
I
a
know.
powerful moment to sort of completely change course.
It
That's
really resonated, I
incredible.
think.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is sort of um a running theme, so to speak, through all of these episodes is that, that chosen sort of client base or chosen modality, whatever it is, has happened quite organically and quite
Yeah.
naturally for everybody, whether we sort of wanted it or not. We sort of fell into that space quite naturally. I was chatting with Matt, who did an episode with me on men, and he was like, I tried so hard. I didn't want this to be my niche. I didn't want it to be. I was like, I didn't want to sort of tunnel vision that. But I think it just happens. I think
It
when
does.
it happens naturally and organically, I think that's when you know that you've hit your sweet spot.
Oh,
Um,
for
but
sure.
yeah,
I
so
tried tertiary education twice before that, totally different degrees. And
yeah.
I actually did start before art therapy, and it was just dry and uninspiring.
Mm,
But in 3 years of art therapy, I think I missed one lecture, and that's because I was
yeah,
on a plane to the UK. It was, and
yeah,
I'd still be there if I didn't have assignments to do. I'd still be there every Monday and Friday.
yeah. I think
Love it.
that's when you know that you've hit your stride. That's
Yeah,
that's the
I
place.
agree. I
So
agree for sure.
so who who do you see who benefits from art therapy? Both people and I guess what they're bringing to sessions as well. Who's fitting into that bubble?
Ah, that's a really good question. At the moment, because it's quite early days for me, I haven't set my own niche. I thought I
Mhm.
did, and I thought I would, and I thought it was just going to be kids.
Yep.
But and I do see a lot of children, but the conversations and the therapy sessions are very different with children that they are with adults.
Mm.
And what I learned at uni was much more the adult because we had to practice with our peers. So
Yes.
these sessions were quite deep and they were full of metaphor and symbol
Yeah.
and real light bulb moments. Okay. That doesn't really happen with a 5 year old or a 6 year old. You know, you're not sitting there dissecting a piece of artwork and they're going, oh, that reminds me of, oh,
Mm.
my, when my mother, or that reminds me of that part of my childhood. So I thought it would be children, and I do connect really easily with children, and I love that side of it. But I also love those much more meaningful conversations of actual therapy with adults. So let's just say my niche is still a work in progress.
Yeah.
And it might never be, maybe my niche is just therapy,
Yeah.
creative arts therapy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just art
Absolutely.
therapy. But I don't say no to anybody because I am just incredibly grateful for anyone that knocks on my door that
Mhm.
wants help.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyone can benefit from it. That's another thing,
Mm,
is with it being, or it can be, non-verbal. Who would not be able to come into a room and sit and get messy or get
mm,
creative, get in the flow, do a collage? So anyone can benefit from art therapy. It's a we were all non-verbal, we were all creative before we were walking and talking. We were all splashing and having fun. And I think that's the sad thing in life, is that the older we get, we let that go. We're all right. We all have two sides of the brain, and our right brain is our creative, emotional side, and we should tap into that more often. And art therapy does that.
yeah. I think we forget and lose that imagination part of us that just allows us to sort of go with what comes and not have to have structure, not have to have an end point, even to just be able to just go. And I think we can tend to lose that as we get older if we don't actively participate in doing things that engage, that creativity and imagination part of
Absolutely.
ourselves. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
Totally agreed. Yeah.
Are there certain issues, presentations that benefit more with a creative approach?
Obviously, willingness to engage.
Yeah.
On my sheets that I write notes on, there's always that, willingness to engage with materials. If you've got a person sitting there going, well, I don't want to touch the mucky
Yeah.
pastels or the chalks or whatever, then that could be an issue.
Yeah.
But generally, anyone that's open to, yeah, allowing it to flow and get out of their heads,
Mm,
because a lot of people are stuck in their heads. Um, and what we really need to be doing is connecting with our hearts and our
mm,
soul. And talking is not always the best way of doing that, being
yeah.
cognitive. So, um, yeah, just being creative just kind of sets this beautiful ball rolling of head, heart, body. Oh, we're all suddenly connected. Oh, okay.
Mm,
This is easier than I thought. Or you'll get teenagers that are monosyllabic and they come in the room and you're just like, and there's like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
yeah.
Okay, you get them doing a collage of, just tell me about you in pictures. Oh, they'll start talking. They don't even know they're talking.
Yeah.
Even when they don't want to, it just starts. It's just
Mm,
beautiful to watch. Oh, happened the other week. I love it. I
yeah.
love when the resistant ones catch themselves like, oh, I'm sharing stuff. I'm talking. Oh, yeah. It's
Uh,
amazing, isn't it? Mm.
yeah. I mean, it's so wonderful when you can sort of see that the light behind the eyes almost of
Yeah.
going, oh, this is not all doom and gloom. This is not, the worst thing in the world to have to be doing.
No.
So I think, it's a really great. And I'm assuming that perhaps it's probably lends well to perhaps neurodivergent folk who engage in, sensory things, being able to, clays, paints, all of that sort of thing where words and language and emotions are perhaps difficult to verbalize. It would help in that sense, in sort of being able to emote without language
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot of neurodiverse people,
Mm,
children in particular, and coming into a safe place with very few expectations,
mm,
very few boundaries, their whole self welcome, very little directive. Um, yeah, that is healing and helping. They don't do a lot in those times, they just an hour to be their absolute raw selves,
yeah.
accepted and loved and held, and they forage away in my little boxes of craft and put the glue gun on and
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah, when they've been masking all day, when they've
Mm,
been sitting in a classroom all day, coming to art therapy, and when, especially when it's become familiar and
mm,
consistent, and they're coming every week or every 2 weeks, and they just barge through that door. Whereas, when you think back to when they first started, and they were like these little shrinking, shy little violets, and then I'm Emma's now, and I get Zen Zebra, and this is what happens, and I get to do this.
yeah.
I get to call the shots, and I get to make the decisions, and I get to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's
Don't you
it's
love it when your clients are excited to come to therapy? Isn't it
yeah,
like, you sort of think nobody is going to ever feel excited to go to therapy. But I think if you're doing therapy right and in a way that is authentic to you, then it's not going to be something that, oh gosh, I have to go to that, this afternoon.
no,
I've got that appointment coming up. It's something that you genuinely can look forward to, because it shouldn't feel like, it's a drag or an effort all of the time.
no.
Particularly for kids. I love, I don't work with kids all that much now, but they brighten your day because they just come
Mm.
in with their beaming smile and they're so excited to see you because you are going to pay full attention to them. You are somebody who pays full attention to them and they
Yeah,
love that. So,
that's exactly it. All eyes
yeah,
on them, and it's
yeah.
all about them. I remember a supervision session way back in the beginning when that whole imposter syndrome is like
Yeah.
the worst. And I remember my supervisor saying to me, Emma, even if at the very least you make therapy a positive experience so that if when they need it again as an adult, they think
Yeah.
back to Zen Zebra and they're like, well, that was cool. I kind of enjoyed that. Even if
Mm,
that's all you do,
yeah.
that's a job well done.
Yeah.
So, and that helped me so much because you
Yeah.
put all this pressure on yourself with the theories and the expectations of the parents and the NDIS goals, blah, blah. And I just sat back and I thought,
Mm,
okay, let's just enjoy.
yeah.
If that's the least I do,
Yeah.
is give them a space that they enjoy.
Absolutely. I
And
love that.
yeah, it's beautiful. It
Yeah.
worked and it helped me a lot.
Yeah. I think that that's a really great notion, even sort of, if your client base is primarily adults, because there will always be a next time, there'll always be, another issue, another grief, another loss, another trauma.
Yeah,
There's always going to be all of these things. So if you can create a positive and a helpful experience in that
yeah,
moment, then at least it's the precursor to the next time.
yeah, yeah,
And because it might not even be that they go to a different therapist because they leave you. It might be you finish up. It might be whatever it is. You might be you go on holidays or, and they're at least in a stance of this was not an awful experience.
mm,
So I think um, that's a great tip, I think, particularly for those who are starting out in any field of therapy, is just make them feel valued, make them feel important, and you know,
seen.
there's
Mm,
there's your positive experience at least.
yep.
So I love that. So somebody was thinking about art therapy.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to expect in the room? Where I talk to everybody about what is it like in the room? What are they going to see?
Well, first of all, they're going to see a lot of color,
Yep.
a lot of rainbows, a lot of zebras, um, and like 5 rainbow colored chairs. But it's a pretty similar format to a talk therapist. So there's a check-in at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That always looks a little bit different, but it involves a color or a shape or a Mr. Potato Head or a one word if I can see that they're not going to engage, or it's painting an emoji, whatever it is. It's a how are you in this moment right now? Let me just gauge how you are.
Yeah.
And then there's um, what's up top for you today? Again, this is for an adult and not a child. A child isn't going to go, oh, I would like to explore my, depressive episode or something like that.
Yeah.
But for an adult, it would look like a check-in. So what do you want to explore today? They'll choose something and I'll be okay, let's take a couple of breaths. Let's just really settle into the space. Let's connect with our breath. And then I would like you just to look at the art materials on the table. There's always a huge selection of all the different things. And as I say, just pick up what calls you and start making some lines, some shapes, some colors. Just engage with the art materials while you think about that intention, what you wanted to explore, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so that happens fast forward, and then maybe half an hour later when they've finished creating, there's been talking sometimes, of course, sometimes there's not. And then we will use the artwork as a way of accessing what came up for them, what they were thinking when they were doing that really hard squiggle I noticed with that piece of charcoal, or why did we leave a gap over there? I wonder, what does that remind you of? Or so we just use the artwork as a point of inquiry, where a talk therapist might use emotion, or they might use they're crying. Well, we'll still do that, but it's just that third thing in the room that's not quite so confronting as eyeball to eyeball, right? Talk to me, explain to me. We'll use the artwork as something to explore. And then, okay, does that make you think of anything? And I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, that blah 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 blah. We'll have the little conclusion at the end with any insights or any ideas that came to, or any new thoughts that came to them. And then at the end, if they're regulated and, I'm happy for them to go off on their merry way, we just do a little checkout. Same. So I just gauge how they are at that moment. Are they a different color? Are they a different emoji? Are they a different mood? So a checkout, and then, that's it.
It sounds like the artwork is almost used a little bit like a map. You guide it around the different aspects of the artwork, and you just look at it as if it was a map, a physical map that you're sort of walking through almost.
It could be, yeah. It's that to me, what I just described to you is a cookie cutter art therapy session. Okay, that's what I learned.
Yeah,
I'd say 80% of art therapy sessions actually work out like that, because I work very intuitively. I don't plan my sessions so, right, well, today we'll do this, because I'm not a directive therapist either. Very client-centered, very client-led. So that's not what they always look like. They will potentially go off on a tangent. So where they started talking about what they thought they wanted to talk about, we'll go off and we'll talk for 5 minutes about that. I'll bring them back to the artwork. Okay, what, are you in that artwork right now? And so, that is what I described as a perfect textbook art therapy session, but they very rarely look like that, because it's very in the moment, and it's very intuitive is my word, because if I feel that we need to go somewhere else, or guide the conversation or ask something else, or I do it in the moment. So I go with my gut feeling. I go with what I feel. Oh, I think actually we might explore that today, or I might ask them a question on that, or I might get them to look at that. And it might not be the art therapy. It might be an emotion that they described, or it might be a big sigh when they're saying everything's all right. It's like, hey, can we just do that again? Are you sure you're okay? You tell me, your face is saying I'm okay, but really your body language is telling me different. Can you just, what was that about? So even though I would love my sessions to look like check-in, intention, check out, they don't. It's go with the flow. And as long as the client is regulated at the end and, safe to leave, then every session just goes where it goes.
Yeah. I tend to sort of work in an intuition led way as well. So I can resonate with that. I don't think anything is ever the way that the textbooks describe, to be honest. I don't think I've not had any session with a client that looks like something that we were taught from a book,
No.
because humans are unique and individual and complex
Yeah,
and simple at the same time. So
absolutely.
I think nothing, there's nothing that's sits in that sort of textbook space very,
No,
very often. So
no.
for those who don't know much about art therapy, so if we're sort of stripping it back to the basics,
Yep.
uh, I think, a lot of people probably think art therapy, drawing, art therapy,
Mm.
painting. And I can tell by your reaction that, it is not just painting and drawing. And so you sort of mentioned that there's a lot of different mediums and materials and things like that. So what sort of things come into art therapy?
You mean as in what activities do we do, or what medias we use? Is that what you mean?
Bit of both. Yeah, I think there's just that sort of automatic assumption that art therapy
Ah,
is just drawing or painting, and I think
I know.
we both know that it is much more broad than that. So
Well,
it might it might be helpful for people to be able to start to put a bit more of a broad picture together of what that looks like.
yeah. Well, it's. I'm so glad you asked, because I bumped into a friend in the supermarket a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, "I was thinking about you the other day. Um, I've got a psychologist friend, better not say too much, and she's just started bringing coloring books into her sessions with children." And I was just like, "Oh my God, I know an art therapist, and she does coloring in." And I was just like, "You don't know what I do at all." And it's
Oh dear.
devastating that people think I've gone and got a Bachelor of Art Psychotherapy to learn how to color in with
Yeah.
people. I probably think we've colored in because some people do need to regulate. Some people
Yeah. It's a
are
self-soothing
stressed.
sort of
Yeah,
activity. Yeah.
yeah, and that's art as therapy, or
Yes.
that's that's using a creative outlet to regulate your nervous system, come into the present moment, color in between the lines. And art psychotherapy, which is what I learned, is psychotherapy. It's positioning the client as an expert of their own life and facilitating them to come to awareness, or new knowings, or ideas and insights, anything. It's my job to hold their hand and to guide the process of healing and helping. The fact that there's art materials in the room, like I said, is just my choice of giving them an alternative than just sitting opposite me in a chair. And because I'm creative and I love color and stuff, coloring in is not going to help people deal with their grief or their depression or their serious causes of anxiety or trauma, you know?
Yeah.
So, what I have in the room is just anything and everything that allows someone just to engage in a creative way, but I'm still guiding, I'm still, I see, this is where I struggle to put it into words. We have collage. So, collage for me, we're not going to get a lot of insight and growth and new knowings from doing a collage, but it's a great way to get a teenager that's quite resistant in the room and learn a little bit of something about them. So, my collage is always available, and it's for really quiet, timid, reluctant-ish clients because it's non-threatening.
Yeah.
So the next thing I'll go on to that is that people think they need to be good at art.
Mm.
That's the biggest myth that I want to bust about art therapy is you do not need to be artistic to do art therapy. You do not need to be artistic and gifted to scroll lines all over a page, because red lines and black lines is what your anger looks like inside of you. You don't need to be artistic to do that. I think people are drawn to art therapy because they do love art materials. So that's great. That's probably how I get my clients is they go, "Oh, well, I need some therapy." And I quite like the idea of doing a bit of art at the same time. That's great. But yeah, so there's collage, there's clay for people that might want to pound out some issues, that might want to really get tactile if they're sensory seeking and they need that to really engage the mind and the body. Then there's clay, there's Play-Doh. We'll have watercolors, but watercolors can be quite tricky because watercolor is very loose and unpredictable. You might not want to offer that to someone who's really dysregulated or really sad because, watercolors spilling all over the page might just, tip them a little too far. So we're all about keeping people safe. So we might offer them something a little more rigid, like crayon or acrylic or pastels. So yeah, I have collage, I have clays, Play-Dohs, I have all the paints, all the crayons, wax, chalk, oil. I have textures for people that feel safer with it. I know where this pen's going to end, and I know where it's going to start, and I know what color it's going to look like, and I can control it. So you have to be able to offer a whole range for how people are feeling on the day, and I have bits of paper that they can tear up. There's really lovely exercises. If somebody has dumped a bit of ugly emotion onto a page, and that's really good at externalizing and getting it out, but to leave them just like, wow, that looks horrible, we might, well, hang on, what could we do with that? Could we rip it up and make it into something else? So this big ugly image on the page might end up as a beautiful rainbow or a fire or a firework or something like that. So this is what I mean about I can't plan because I don't know what's going to happen in the room at any given time. But yeah, for the children, I have a whole range of toys as well. So they might start off being creative, but then they'll want to go and end up with a game of Uno or a game of Guess Who or a game of Go Fish, headbands. And what else do I have? I do have diamond art. I do have the very, very specific, those like art diamond and cross stitch for people that might want something to work towards over a few sessions. And they do want something to leave with, but generally they don't leave with their artworks. The artworks stay with me, they go in the bin, they are redesigned into something else, or they just go in their folder as a like a clinical note basically of what they did on the day and a reminder. Yeah.
I love that. I love the free flowing nature of it. I think it is something that is not necessarily readily accessible or available with traditional talk therapy. I think, there is still sort of, if we think about following our thoughts or emotions or things like that through a talk medium, there is still some sort of linear nature to it often, whereas I love the lack of linear that comes with a creative medium. And I think that people aren't necessarily going to get that from a traditional talk therapy.
Well, I'll just say that sometimes if you want to get really fancy or if it feels like it needs to go somewhere else, you can get, multimodal. So you might end up with an image and it might not seem finished, but they might want to put some words to it. You might end up doing a poem. It might start somewhere and you go into something else, and it's just, you just don't know where you're going to start and when you're going to finish in art therapy. That it's to say no two sessions are the same is an understatement. And there is no right or wrong either. And I'm fighting against that all the time with people that just like, oh, do you use watercolors like this, or do you blend like that? Hey, there is no rights or wrongs in this room. Go for it. If you want to put your hand in that and use your finger, then go with it. Follow that impulse.
I would think that, there's people out there who go, I'm not going to therapy because talking about it is too painful. Talking about it is too hard. I don't want to sit there and rehash, my abuse, my trauma, the grief, the loss, the, whatever it is, insert pain here. It's too hard. It's too hard. it's too painful. And so I would think that this would be, the perfect space almost to ease somebody into a psychotherapy space where they don't need to talk at all if they don't want to start with. They don't need to say a single word.
No.
Yet they can still walk away having had a positive experience, and it could still be incredibly powerful and healing in a way that would be unexpected almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I would
Yeah.
think, there it would be a space for those people as well.
Well, even just by being creative, if you're not talking, you are connecting left brain with right brain, and that in itself can make you feel infinitely better
Mm.
because we're not stuck on one side. So if they've come in and they're refusing to talk, but they will doodle or they will paint, and they're regulated, whether I'm sharing my nervous system or whether just being there in a safe space for someone means they're regulated. But just by connecting, even if they don't talk, and believe me, that actually doesn't happen as often as I thought it would, because I do advertise that, when words are too tough or when words are not enough, it people might come with the mindset of, I don't want to talk, I'll just create. But just connecting those two sides of the brain with their breath in a safe space, the words do come. They're
Mm.
not, they might not talk about a trauma, but they will talk and they will open up and they will share maybe something they haven't shared before.
Wow.
So yeah, it's healing and beneficial in so many ways. And when I think of 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds going off to see the psychologist, I'm just like, okay, okay, yeah, right, because yeah, these little kidlets respond so much better, moving their body, integrating their
Yeah.
pre-verbal, non-verbal selves into the space, into the experience. Yeah, I feel ripped off that we are at the bottom of the food chain, therapists, especially art therapists. I feel
Yeah,
ripped off because I feel we have so much to offer,
absolutely. Mm.
especially to younger people,
Yeah.
especially to people that language doesn't come easy, or
Mm.
they don't want to sit and talk after they've been at school, or they just don't want to sit full stop. Who wants to go and sit at 5 or 6 years old to an adult they barely know about
Yeah.
stuff they probably actually don't know what they're talking about either?
Yes. Yeah. It's
That's
too,
the thing.
sometimes they don't have the language to even verbalize or access that sort of
No.
part of them. But it is frustrating because I think, you talk to anybody who is well versed or an expert in trauma, knows and understands that that part of your brain needs to be accessed for there to be healing, for there to be, post-traumatic growth to happen. I was rereading it's often the gold standard of trauma, The Body Keeps the Score, and there is, Bessel is a trauma leading expert, and side note, I would reread, if you are out there and you are studying, reread the books later because you'll view them differently. But there is a whole chapter in there on theater and the creative modality of theater, and it's still falling under that banner of expressive or creative therapy. And so
Yep.
I think I understand that frustration, that the
Yeah.
lack of acknowledgement of
Yeah.
just how powerful it can be for somebody. I think you might have already alluded to it, but I love the moment in these episodes where we get to smash a myth. And I think
Yeah.
you might have already alluded to it, but what myth is that you would like to smash?
Oh, I've
I
got
mean,
a few
probably so
actually.
many.
Yeah, I do. I do. Two, I've already alluded to one, which is
Yeah.
that people believe that they need to be an artist, because I'm not an artist. And I think that's the thing with art therapists, is that a lot of art therapists are naturally artistic and they do paint. And so that's why they were drawn to it. I don't paint. I was drawn to it because I'm creative in a different way. So people think I need to be able to paint a pretty picture. I need to be able to know how to use paints or watercolors or whatever to embark on art therapy. You don't. You really, if anything, it's probably better if you're not, because the less judgment for self in that room, it it is better. And if you're like, oh, this isn't very good, and rubbing it out frantically, like, okay, we're kind of losing the point here. So that's the biggest one, is that artistic ability is needed to engage in art therapy. But the second one is also, and it's another thing that I've been told many times, is that I've got another one that's come to me, but the second one is that the relationship in therapy is the catalyst of healing and change. It is not the theories we've learned. It's not the theories we use. And I didn't need to go to uni to build connections, because that's the one thing I will appreciate in myself, is my ability to connect. I never blow hot air up myself. I'm not that kind of person, but I connect really easily, and it comes easily. And it's that, if you don't connect with your therapist, move on. There is no harm and no offense given. It's a little bit like dating. Keep going until you find the right therapist. It's not one therapist fits all. I am not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and neither is the next person. The relationship is where the healing happens, not what you're doing in the room or how you're doing it. It is heart to heart work, and that is the biggest gift to myself, because it took a lot of pressure off myself about theory this and that theory that, and we didn't know. No, it's heart to heart, and if you connect with someone, then your work is done.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. It is the single most way that I work with people is, and I will say to them, I am not everybody's therapist. I don't want to be everybody's therapist. And if I am not your therapist, then tell me, and I will help you find somebody who is more likely to be. Because it's not, it's not a personal complaint against me. It is just our magnets do not align, and that it's as simple as that. But it is, another running theme that is coming up in these episodes is, and it tends to be the way that I run my practice, which is to be seen is to be understood. And when we feel understood, we grow, and we have more capacity for change and progression. And the single thing that you should be getting from your therapy sessions is you should feel seen, you should feel heard, you should feel valued.
And felt. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I love that. I completely resonate with that. I think it is undervalued, I think, in terms of, yes, the theory is important. Yes, I work very much from a lived experience point of view. My niche has been my life. So it is that lived experience, it creates that connection. I never want my clients to feel like they need to educate me. That's not their job. So that sort of that connection. Yes, theory is important. Yes, education is important. But it's only part of the picture, and it's a small part of that picture. So yes, I completely agree. I love that. Now I have to finish because I didn't ask you pre-recording this. And I'm curious to know, where did the zebras come from? It's I'm thinking, your room is so full of color, and you've picked a black and white animal.
Have you seen my logo though?
Oh, I have. It's very
rainbow.
bright, very beautiful and colorful.
Okay, zebra, threefold. Came threefold. the last gift my mom gave me before she died was a zebra from South Africa.
Beautiful.
Very small, beautiful ceramic little zebra. He's very special to me. When I was studying, I was in Woolies one weekend with my husband, and there was a Hallmark card, and it's two zebras, and one's coloured in. I've got it on my wall, actually. And this non-coloured in zebra is looking at this other coloured in zebra like, you're crazy. What are you doing? He's like, it's supposed to relieve stress. And I remember at the time I put it on the uni group chat. I was like, we've made it onto Hallmark.
Oh, that is
art
so
therapy
good.
is on a Hallmark card. So I went and I printed it out off of Works, and I gave every single student in my cohort a copy, because I was just like, that is just, come on, Hallmark. I mean, I know it's that whole colouring in thing, but still.
I mean, the concept behind it.
Yeah. And the third thing was my mom had a business back in the day, and it was a tile shop, and her logo was a giraffe because of the tiles on the, the giraffe's neck looks a little bit like crazy paving tiles. And I don't know, I guess I'm pretty stand out. I'm not a blender in her, and I just thought I don't want a generic logo. I guess I want a quirky something, and I love alliteration. And so when I had the zebra, I was laying in bed one night and I was like, what am I going to call it if my flipping logo is a zebra? And it just came to me one night, and I was just like, Zen Zebra. And I'm like, there you go, the final piece of the puzzle.
I love that.
Everyone loves it.
I think it's great. When I saw it, I was like, it's the cutest thing ever. And it, it's memorable, and that's what you want. I mean, from a side note of, the marketing side that gets drilled into us when we're sort of doing a business, it's, it's memorable, and that's what you want. But it's also, inviting. I think there's just something inviting about animals in general.
Yes.
So it draws people in, but I think it's adorable.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, this has been wonderful. I've enjoyed this so much, and I mean, my hope, if anything, is that it gets more people into the doors of, a local art therapist, because and just to give it a go and just see what happens, because I think if you sort of go in with that mentality of let's just see what happens, that's when revelations and pleasant surprises and unexpected things pop up. So hopefully
let our inner child get messy.
Yes, absolutely. I mean even as an adult, I sort of go, let's just try and, you pull out that inner child part of you that wants so badly to break out and be imaginative and spontaneous and creative. Let that, the only thing that came to my mind then was let that freak flag fly. Let that part of you come out and 100%. See what happens.
They're far too sensible.
Yeah, absolutely. Let the inner dinosaur or the inner zebra come out and see what happens. Because I think, it's got, I love artistic mediums in therapy, because I think it's just got such great potential for powerful moments that talk therapy doesn't allow. So I love that. So hopefully, I'm hoping that it has inspired even just one person to walk through their local art therapist's door and go, let's see what happens.
So let's start with one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It has been lovely.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me ramble on.
Oh, anytime. And for anybody listening out there, all of Emma's details will be in the description. And you are on Instagram, yes?
I am, Zen Zebra Art Therapy. Thank you.
Perfect. Head on over there and check her out. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed joining us inside the therapy room. Thanks for listening.